Good afternoon, everyone, and it's really a pleasure to be with you all and to discuss on a very contemporary topic today, and a topic which concerns everyone, all in person, individuals, industry, countries, and the world as a whole, where we are all concerned post-pandemic and also the situation which has emerged due to the pandemic. And we are coming to a new normal where we are really talking of a new world order. Some people talk of a bipolar world. Some people are talking of the ongoing war. Some people are really concerned about, as a situation which is really going to change the way we look at the life and even the business and also the different countries and the trade, right? And there's a lot of impetus which is happening from different countries across the world, which we have seen. China, flexing its muscle quite a bit altogether, and at the same time, we are finding, a lot of cyber attacks also happening, and the hackers are, in the complete game altogether, who are the new kind of the attackers or the warriors of all the battles. So we are finding the countries using the cyber war as a weapon right now. In addition to the cyber warfare, where everybody is getting onto the warfare which is of the social media, right? And there's lots of things which we are seeing today are changing the dynamics of the future. And it's only the time which is going to tell us as to how the things are going to be in a couple of months, maybe a year or so. So the topic what we are going to discuss is the hybrid war and the emerging paradigm and challenges in the world order, right? And for this discussion, there was no best panel I think we could have come up with, where we have the most eminent personalities on the emerging on the TV, the social media, in person. So, and they're real think tanks in themselves, right? And just to introduce you, and I will just introduce them in more detail. Firstly, I have, in fact, I have His Excellency Cyril Gabruchi is not able to join us right now because of his, some commitment which came up. He's the former Prime Minister of Republic of Moldova. Most probably he will join us as we commence our discussion, so he'll be there in between. And he requires no, introduction. He's been in the forefront of the Moldova into different domains, and he is a person who's a mentor, a big motivator, and he lives by his example himself, right? Then we have Lieutenant General Anil Malik. Sir has been the strategic leader in Indian Army, certified independent director, TEDx speaker with us, and he's put in an experience of almost 44 years of diverse and dedicated experience in defense, administration, training, education, and healthcare management. In addition, we also have with us today General Shashi Asthana, and you would be seeing General Asthana more often on TV than otherwise. And General Asthana is a veteran infantry general with 40 years of varied experience in national, international fields, and in United Nations. He was a former ADG Infantry of Indian Army and head of training at Defense Service Staff College, Wellington. He's been awarded twice by President of India, twice by UN, and CEE Excellence Award of Nation Building by Governor of Haryana. Presently, he is chief instructor at all courses for all courses at USI India. That's a United Services Institute India. Then we have a very eminent personality in the education field, Dr. Brigadier V.D. Abraham. He's an engineer by profession, daring leader, decorated by Gallantry Award by President of India. Excelled as a researcher, innovator, educationist, mover of an organization with charisma. He's chaired selection committees, performed as Chief Maintainability Advisor to Indian Army, Dean Faculty of Education Institution, Deputy Leader of 15th Indian scientific expedition to Antarctica, headed many engineering organizations of Army, and carried out various appointments with Governor of J&K, national level sportsman of yesteryears, and presently a graded golfer. Known as for his pragmatic dynamism and remembered as an asset to all organizations. He is decorated with 3 national awards and authored many papers. He's chaired and organized large number of international and national seminars, being executive member of IIT of Meerut, Center of Meerut, Vadodara, and Chennai. He's a blessed orator. This distinguished officer has adorned coveted appointment of Deputy Director of EME of Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala area, and Brigadier EME of Northern Command. Presently adorned the chair of VC, Oriental University Indore, and elected as national level to the Governing Council of IIT, and nominated as chairman and Innovation and Resource Generation Committee of Institute of Electronics and Telecom Engineers. Right. Thereafter, we have Dr. Markande Rai. He is Chairman BMO of Quality Council of India, ED of Synergies Institute, Deputy Director IESEI, Chairman GPD SA. He's Chancellor IGPA MSU India, Senior Advisor UN Habitat, President Global Peace and Development Service Alliance, Member Global Leader Council, Global Peace Foundation, and President Foreign Affairs Committee, Indian Council of International Cooperation, India. So I welcome all the eminent guests to the panel, and looking forward for very interesting discussions from each one of you. So to set the ball rolling, I'll request Dr. Arvind Sharma, President IEOD, and to give opening remarks for the conference.
Good afternoon, eminent panelists, participants, and attendees. Thank you, Colonel Barara, for initiating the webinar with my speech. I appreciate the organizing team of the IOD for this selection of topic, that is hybrid warfare. As you all are already aware that your International Organization for Educational Development, IOD, an international intergovernmental organization, now is in special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations since 2020. It is the highest status granted by the United Nations, thereby allowing an organization to participate in the work of the United Nations headquarters in New York, United Nations offices in Geneva and Vienna, its bodies, and other intergovernmental organizations. Now the responsibility of the IOD has increased, especially in present circumstances when the economy of all the UN nations except China is on lowest stage. Now each and every UN nation is fighting with this COVID-19 instead of promoting the corporate-centric, skill-based, employable, quality education and various employability enhancement and entrepreneurship development programs for sustainable development. Hybrid warfare is the new buzzword. Today's webinar will throw light on this new type of war. And I really think that it is going to be a brainstorming webinar. I wish all the luck to all the eminent speakers and looking forward to some thrilling ideas. Hybrid warfare basically aims at changing the mindset of people and hammer on the weaknesses of the citizens of a country. It is really easy to play with the mindset of people, and the task becomes easier if the people are illiterate and can be easily convinced. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And before we get on to the discussion of the webinar per se, I will, want to do a kind of a book launch ceremony. And can you see my screen, please? Can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah, yes, we can see you.
Okay. So I wanted to, do a book launch ceremony today on the day when we are talking of the hybrid warfare, talking of peace, and a book written by Dr. Brigadier V.D. Abraham, Senna Medal, and he, wants to publish this book today here. And I'll request Dr. Arvind Sharma to say a couple of words about the book and launch of the book.
I am happy to honor to launch a knowledgeable book written by my dear friend, Brigadier Dr. V.D. Abraham. This title of the book, Pilgrimage to Peace. This book throws lights on different types of conflicts and differences in and among the societies to spread his peace. I congratulate him for this wonderful book. I would like to request Dr. Abraham to throw light on this. Thanks.
Dr. Abraham, sir, some couple of words from you. Sir.
Thank you, sir.
That's really wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful to see the name of Pilgrims to Peace when we are talking about hybrid warfare. It's really very interesting, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for releasing this. I'll just tell you what it is. I'm not going to tell. You can always go through it and the background of it. I have been invited as a resource person for YAPA, that means Youth Associations of Peace in Asia, a training which has been conducted at Thailand. When I was been invited as a resource person for a week, I have to gather a lot of information to teach all this 1 week courses. That's why different types of conflicts of yesteryears, how that has been tackled, and what can be the theory to involve to find out the conflict erosion, eruption, and subsequently how can you submit that conflict rather than it becomes to be an explosive one. This is the technique in which has been utilized to train the students. I have gathered all the information from all over and subsequently put into my words, and it has come out at the sense. It has been published by third publications, which you can see it. Subsequently, during my business VD Abraham gmail.com. Anything if at all you want to know regarding this pilgrimage to peace, I'll be honored for any query, either by the panelist or by any of the audience. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
It's really wonderful, sir. It's so nice that we'll like to read this book. Any of the eminent panelists want to, congratulate Dr. Abraham? It will be really a pleasure to do so now.
I wish to congratulate Dr. V.D. Abraham, and he set the tone for today's webinar. And I'm so happy to see the cover page, a pilgrimage of peace. Similar thought came in my mind. This is a coincidence. And I published a book in 2 volumes, The Challenges of 21st Century. And the same type of dove and the photograph and the picture is also on this book. It's just I have never made look like that Dr. Varghese Abraham, but look like that Indians think in a similar way. And being with such a high position as brigadier, he's thinking about pilgrimage to peace. I think I'm very comfortable today in the webinar among the very big officials of army and the defense forces. I think that being a civilian, I am always a promoter of peace, and I think I was not very comfortable talking about war, rather talking about other side of the coin of hybrid of peace, hybrid of peace and hybrid of war. So he set me the tone, and he rescued me from my fear of today's webinar. Thank you so much, and I think I would like to see a copy of this book if it is available in Delhi to read it and what he is talking about, how to go for peace. Peace is priceless at any cost. Thank you so much, Dr. Varghese.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rai.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'd like to felicitate Brigadier Abraham on this great achievement, pilgrimage to peace. And I'm so overwhelmed to see that even Dr. Rai has published something on the subject of peace. I just want to make a statement that as a soldier, I've always felt that my job is to prevent war and ensure peace. So I think that I added extra impetus to today's discussion. We are all going to be looking at warfare, but we are still going to be looking at how to ensure that that war does not take place, and how we can all work together collectively, individually, society, larger countries and smaller countries to ensure peace. So I think a great start to today's webinar. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
General Sana sir, I'll request you if you can say a couple of words, sir.
Firstly, it's a great pleasure to be on the forum of IOED. My congratulations to IOED for the consultative status. My great congratulations to Brigadier Varghese, and I have some different association with him by being in USI, as I have worked with his brother as well. So therefore, it's a great honor to see you releasing this book. And as a soldier, certainly we talk of warfare purely to prevent peace, because as our Prime Minister has put it, peace can be talked only by people who are strong. So certainly when a country is strong and the armed forces are strong, that is the time when a country can talk peace. So that is one part of it. The second part is that I see a number of panelists who have worked in this area. My congratulations to Dr. Rai as well for his book, and certainly one would like to read both the books, which will be, I'm very sure, very educative on these issues. And look forward for this webinar. This is a subject which perhaps everybody is talking in different forms and different forums, and I'm sure collectively we will be able to put in something which is useful to all the viewers.
Thank you very much, sir. And
Thank you, sir.
with us, Mr. David Otto has also joined us. He is, and welcome, Mr. David. Welcome to the webinar. Just a couple of words about Mr. David. He is the International Terrorism Consultant at Stepped In, Stepped Out UK Limited. And he is the founder of PCVE program, Step In, Step Out Global. He's consulted on terrorism and organized crime threat and risk assessments, solution framework design, program implementation, M&E programs for government, NGOs and private organizations, specialized expertise on the global geopolitical dynamics between the West, Middle East, and Africa. He's an expert consultant for governments and NGOs, including the UN, NATO, Interpol, US DoD. He's a selected trainer on AT/CT and organized crime solution strategies for anti-terrorism accreditation board. Really wonderful, sir. And David regularly appears, writes opinion reports, and comments on global news channels of CNN, Fox News, Al Jazeera, BBC World, BBC Focus on Africa, TRT News, Vox Africa, Arise News. His work is published and features in international newspapers, social media platforms, etc. David holds very eminent degrees along with himself into the criminology in counterterrorism and organized crime, and he's a certified anti-terrorist specialist and certified master anti-terrorist specialist with ATAB. And with so much accreditation, he supports global peace efforts as the African representative for Pave the Way Foundation. So really welcome, with so much of knowledge and background, Mr. David Otto. to the webinar. A couple of words from you, Mr. David, before we go to the subject specific.
Thank you very much, Colonel Singh. Dr. Arvind, I really want to thank each and every one of you, the IOED, for this wonderful opportunity. I can see that we've got with us here Dr. Rai, we've got Brigadier Dr. Vegas David Abraham, we've got Shashi Anastana, do forgive me if I don't pronounce it very well, and Lieutenant General Anil Malik. I really want to appreciate each and every one of you. This is a wonderful platform, and I think the selected topic here is very, very crucial. Globally, we talk about hybrid warfare. As we would talk about it sooner or other than later, I think we would get down to understanding the importance of this. And it's a pleasure for me to share with you my own perspective as to what this topic is and the importance of it, especially looking at the position of India in current times. So, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to contributing my part of ideas to this wonderful initiative.
Right. Thank you, Mr. David. Really, pleasure to have you here on the panel. Just to set the context and keep the ball rolling again, I'll just put everybody as to, because there's a different perception about the hybrid warfare. Just to give a definition aspect of the hybrid warfare, actually what does it define? Then I'll take it from the panelists as to what are their views. So it's, in fact, hybrid warfare is defined as a strategy employing political warfare and blending conventional, irregular, and cyber warfare with other influencing methods. And what are the methods? These are the fake news, disinformation methods, cyber tools, foreign electoral intervention or political disruption, diplomacy, and so many things which are happening, and we are seeing it today. And today what we are seeing, there's so much of fake news, there's so much of disinformation, and while the elections, American elections are on, there's so much of cloud about the disinformation going all over. There's the problem of the deep fakes, or the fake news which is being generated by AI, artificial intelligence. Then the cyber, and how the cyber practically is being, put to the test. So there's lots of changing characteristics of the warfare, from the traditional form of the warfare to the emerging form of the warfare, where the warfare is ongoing. And instead of the target being the forces in the traditional warfare, we are targeting our enemy's perception, we are targeting the society, we are targeting the remote areas inside, we are targeting the people of the country, right? And that's where our whole ecosystem is, changing. So with this as opening remarks, I will request my eminent panelists to, give their views. So I will start from General Malik to begin with.
Thank you, Kangji. I think you rightfully gave us first a definition or a platform in which hybrid warfare has been talked about. But there is always a thought process that what has changed? Is it the methodologies have changed, or was hybrid warfare always existing? We read up terms by Clausewitz to say total war, wherein it was implied that it's not only the conventional, the military who are involved, but an adversary will always use all kinds of methodologies. Even I would say that when you use diplomacy to change the mindset of people, that itself is another form of hybrid warfare. Interference in government affairs, inciting popular movements, these have all been there from ancient times and have been a part of hybrid warfare. Yes, today with the latest technologies available, while the earlier efforts were easily discernible, you could identify that somebody was making some effort in a shorter period of time. But today, with the latest technologies available, hybrid warfare itself has acquired a new dimension. It is quite a new challenge. So while the conventional war will always remain as a platform, but that is going to be pushed to the background by other methodologies which are going to be available today. The fear which will always remain is that can today's hybrid warfare, that is attacks on various other, on the mindset of people, attacks on critical vulnerabilities, attacks on the psyche of people, would they result in building up for a proper full-scale war? That is a major concern which emerges. Secondly, in our own case, let's take an example of India. There have been in the recent past incidents at provoking, at pushing certain norms to be able to test how our reactions. And fortunately, today we stand very proudly and say that we have come out victorious and have brought out to the adversary that his such movements which have been generated are not going to work, as today we are a united nation, a nation which is bound together. There is a lot of things happening on the hybrid warfare front also. There are attempts at instigating movements. We are all aware of areas where these are happening. We are aware of the kind of espionage activity that is taking place. Corporates have become as threatened today as a frontline soldier. And therefore, hybrid warfare today is a matter of great concern. While we may define it by short of conventional war, but actually what is happening today is more dangerous than what conventional war could be, because the damage that would occur would be to a much deeper extent than would a conventional war. So much for the time being. We'll get back to what.
General Asana, sir, I think your views on it, sir.
Okay. There are many definitions of hybrid warfare. You read out some, and some my co-panelists have already mentioned. I must distinguish between what is conventional war and what is hybrid war, and where does the distinction lies, and therefore where is the dimension of hybrid war which is going in, and what are the instruments of hybrid war which are being utilized in today's world. Firstly, when we talk of conventional war, old time, it used to be that, okay, there are two countries and there are two forces, and those military forces are being utilized and they both follow Geneva Convention and things like that. That's the mindset of the conventional war. There is another definition called as sub-conventional war. Now, anything between peacetime to conventional war is in the domain of sub-conventional war, and it is a mother definition of all these wars put together. There used to be a terminology called as use of force, that a state will use a force and then only to meet a political aim, and that will be a war. Now, the force word has been replaced by comprehensive national power. And what is comprehensive national power? It is a combination of economic, technology, diplomacy, population, your human resource, etc., etc. Now you start counting everything and you will find the hybrid war coming into place. When it comes to economy, you have trade war, you have economic war, you have debt trap diplomacy. All this, when combined with conventional war, then it becomes hybrid. Hybrid is not in isolation. It has to be combined with another war. That's why this is the use of word hybrid. When you talk of technology, obviously there is a network-centric warfare. There is cyber, there is IT, there is IT breach. There is also digital intrusion and digital encroachment by various countries in terms of artificial intelligence and in terms of other methodologies. Then you talk of population. In population, the manipulation of population by information warfare, by media warfare, by buying the, shall we say, think tanks and opinion makers, by buying political leaders. So this is another area. And then you called as diplomacy. Now in diplomacy also, a very recent term which everybody must have been heard of is wolf warrior diplomacy. Certain countries trying to unnecessarily put pressure through diplomats on another countries. Now, all these things, they combine together, and when you combine these two, then it becomes a hybrid warfare. The other element which comes into is the non-state actors. Now, while the conventional forces used to follow some kind of rules and regulations, and they were also under the United Nations, and the governments were responsible for their actions, the non-state actors, the terrorists, they are not responsible for any of these things. And bulk of the wars today are part of hybrid warfare. You take an example of the conflict which is going on between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Every element exists. Whatever I have named, I don't think there is anything which is missing there. There is an involvement of conventional forces also. There is also an involvement of non-state actors. There is a proxy war which Turkey is trying to put in there. There is an economic element in terms of the oil pipeline. There is a religious angle. There is also the induction of terrorists, which is happening in both these countries. And all this, when put into together, it is a big problem for all the countries which are involved. You see, NATO, they find their two countries on both sides of the fence. Similarly, Russia is finding its erstwhile the countries into both sides, that is opposite side of the fence. Turkey, member of NATO, fighting against NATO. So entire confusion has taken place because a hybrid war of this kind has emerged. Now, this is the case with all other wars as well. Today, nobody can say that we are not at war. Peacetime is something which we used to say that, okay, nothing is happening. Now, there is no stage where nothing is happening. Cyber war is on every time. Information war is on every time. Economic war is on every time. So, at any point of time, you are in various stages of war. You can call it Cold War 1.0, you can call it Cold War 1.5 or Cold War 2.0 or whatever. But the fact is that the country is in an urge to emerge out more stronger, certainly utilize all methods of warfare. There could be kinetic methods and there could be non-kinetic methods. Now, I've used these two words deliberately. The reason is that when we talk of the physical actions, whether it is by the organized forces or it is by terrorists, then it is a kinetic war. And when we are talking of manipulating the opinions and information warfare, then it is a non-kinetic kind of domain. At the same time, there is another, the conventional war has also taken a turn. Earlier, people used to fight. Now, fighting is not that common. What is common is military posturing, trying to gain territory without fighting. What has happened in South China Sea is something called as incremental encroachment strategy, incremental encroachment warfare. That, okay, you move into some vacant space till the time you are stopped, carry on. And when you are stopped, then you say, okay, I will disengage, no problem, I'll get back 1 or 2 kilometers. In the bargain, whatever you gain, you gain. So this is another area which has come in. Then what is again happening in South China Sea, you can find the military posturing, show of force. Now that is also a use of force, but it's not a kinetic warfare, but at the same time the force is being utilized. So these are the angles in which then you come to the psychological warfare, playing out in the minds of the other adversary. By the other day, I saw one demonstration by Chinese of a mine layer that is remotely delivered mine layer shown by all the TV channels, least realizing that it is totally ineffective in mountain warfare. So that is the kind of mind game which is being played up in various forums. So all this put together forms part of various facets of hybrid warfare. Certainly, we need to understand all these facets to be able to combat it. How we are going to combat it, I think I'll leave it for the next time, because we will continue with our discussion, and that is going to come up again. And when we talk of vulnerabilities, we will talk about how we combat all these kinds of warfare. So
Thank
I'll
you, sir.
rest my
And
case.
yes,
Later.
thank you. Thank you, sir. It was really insightful, and that's what the China is trying to play the game on. And if you have seen that when the Galwan Valley started, thereafter we saw a couple of cyber attacks which started happening. Sometime on the power grid, which happened. Sometime on the railway traffic signaling, which happened. Sometime on the NHAI, which happened. Then there was a case of they tracking almost 1,000 personalities in India. They're tracking and doing the data analytics part of it. Tracking them to threadbare, knowing about what they're doing, and that's what they're 24/7 trying to gain information. So the things are really changing, sir. The dynamics what you brought out are really changing, sir. So now I'll request Dr. Abraham to say a couple of words, sir. So should I show the presentation, or you'd like to speak, sir?
Yes, sir. Can you
I'll
very good
share the
afternoon to all the panelists. It was very insight, especially when Asana's brought a world scenario. My intention is to narrow down the scenario to present Indian scenario with things. It says basically, we know that the typical quality of India is the China, the adversary as such. And basically the current time definition of what is the greatest quality of is unpredictability of their action, internal dynamics is the greatest things in which we have to counter. When you are talking about cyber or no, hybrid, it is for us to think one more step forward. What is, how can we do the counter hybrid? If you see that what and how, if at all you can see this, you all totally put in the words in the correct perspectives of definition of what is hybrid warfare. Whether it is a threat or a warfare which is hybrid, basically it is described employing multiple diverse tactics simultaneously with a varied domain and level against an opponent through vulnerable soft target. What Dr. Arvind Sharma sir has told that hammering the weak links is the things in which they are looking for. You know that there is no limit of this attack, whether it is economic, social, or information, and the greatest is the political field, which we have seen in the US election. What that is called the gray zone warfare, in which we are not worried about that particularly, but we are on today. Our nation is much more in stronger hands of a firm and leaders. So that is not our worry. Basically, it refers to the power being employed to achieve the national objectives in the way that falls short of the physical conflict. I will come back to this later. This is the probable attempt of maximum focus on psychological warfare and aiming at with the propagandizing that the Indian capability cannot match with what is China in this field. This is basically propaganda. If at all we see that the present Air Chief has totally said many times, but he said, yes, we can. We will be able to, we are super. This type of inspiring words from the leaders makes a lot of sense. And now come back to me, why hybrid? When I said that what is hybrid and why hybrid? Basically, earlier what I was, both my the panelists previous days, conventional warfare cannot bring a solution as on today, and it is very costly affair in terms of this. So to encash the myth that war always occurs in the single domain of military kinetics, and at a level that pitch, which always the highest, is the usual perceptions that persist in the public mind. Basically, that is what the idea of low, mid, and high, or simply collaborated intensities mixed with many other domains, there is no limit of the from the spectrum of security is usually not very appealing against the alluring perception of the high or low end wars. There's an old concept of basically it's definitely due to the new and emerging technologies is the catchword, which is whatever has happened in the hybrid, the utility of the highest technology which is happening, that will take you for whatever the past has passed. But now presently the emerging technology utilization, including with the artificial intelligence, is your thought process is the limit. There is no boundary or in the things which you can do. Basically, it's to disable the opponent's actions without engaging.
I think his screen is Brigadier Abraham, you're there? Screen is got frozen. Abraham, sir, are you there? I think his network. So we will, get back to Brigadier Abraham when he's back. What I'll do is I'll request Mr. David to say a couple of his views and remarks on the hybrid warfare.
Thank you very much. Times have changed, and I totally agree with what my able panelists have presented. Now, when I talk about hybrid warfare, the first question that comes in mind is, where does it take place, and what does it involve? And that is where we talk about the physical planning, preparation, and execution of a particular war, which comes down to the terminology that I use as a platform. So what platform does hybrid warfare take place in? And this is where you talk about the physical space and the online space. But then what does the tactic of hybrid warfare involve? And the tactic of hybrid warfare is what most of the panelists have, made very clear, that, you talk about things like cyber warfare, which is a tactic. And that cyber warfare is being used on the online platforms, on social media, for propaganda purposes. And then you go back to, where's the impact of hybrid warfare? How is the impact being felt? And where is it being felt? Is the impact being felt on the economy? Is it being felt on the psychology of the population? Is it being felt on the diplomacy of a particular state? So you've got these three key components that when we talk about hybrid warfare, we talk about. And again, as I said earlier on, you've got to be able to understand the platform that it takes place upon it. You understand the tactics that various countries use in order for them to achieve the hybrid warfare from an intervention perspective. And then you look at also the impact that hybrid warfare uses. And then before you move into talking about the last layer of hybrid warfare, is who are the players that are involved. And when you look at who are the players that are involved, and then you go back to talking about your military, you're talking about your cyber specialists, then you come back to the point where we bring in your proxy wars. So I think it's very important that when we talk about these things, we talk about hybrid warfare, we understand that this is the new war. So we've passed the conventional war period where you'd have, for example, the First World War and the Second World War, where one country would invade another country. Of course, we've seen that, in the case of Azerbaijan and Armenia. We've seen that in similar situations with what is happening between China and India in some respect. So you see that there is still that element of conventional warfare tactics, which one country would still have its military to invade another country for a particular purpose. And then, but what we see generally in the 21st century is an increase in asymmetric warfare, which is what I call the invincible enemy. And this involves a scenario where the local population is involved. And we can talk about terrorism, for example. We can talk about issues like the Arab Spring that we saw taking place in Northern Africa. We can talk about issues of civil protest. So you still have this kind of a mix of conventional tactics being used with asymmetric tactics. And then you talk about, again, the issue of proxy wars, where, for example, we saw a very good example of that in the early 80s and close to the 90s, where the Soviet Union and the USA came up, the USA came up with this idea of the Mujahideens, which eventually became today's Al Qaeda. So, in terms of talking about these issues of hybrid warfare, we've got to really go down to what is it that each country has to do in order to understand who are your enemies and who are your opponents, and how do you prepare against the launching of conventional warfare tactics? How do you prepare against the launching of an asymmetric warfare tactics, and also a proxy war tactics by your opponents? So you've got to understand these three things. But in order for you to understand that, you've got to be able to identify your national intelligence estimate, which determines your order of battle. How do you engage in a war with China when you don't understand China's capability in asymmetric warfare deployment tactics, when you don't understand their capability in conventional warfare, when you don't understand their ability to deploy proxy wars within your state? So I think it is very important to look at some of the common tactics which are being deployed by various states that you believe are your opponents, and understand how these common tactics, would influence, them being at the upper hand or you being at the lower hand. And this is where you're building your threat, analysis comes in. You're building your vulnerability analysis and understanding the various natures of wars that you face in your country. So I think this is where I'll leave it at. But again, it comes down to these levels of assessment that needs to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. David. I think you gave a very nice perspective of the global scenario and how it's really, changing the dynamics in the hybrid warfare and from the conventional warfare. So thank you very much. It's really very insightful. And before I go to, Dr. Rai, I'll request Dr. Abraham. We were showing you a couple of slides. You can finish first. I think your screen had got stuck, and we can then go on to Dr. Rai. I think that's what we'll do. Can you see the screen, Dr. Abraham?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Dr. Abraham, are you there?
I suggest if he is showing the slide, then he can switch off his video. He will be able to talk and the slides will come, but he will not be seen. That is a better option.
Yeah, so I'm showing the slide, so it should not be a problem. I think his video is a problem. So, Abraham sir, you can just talk. That will be also good. You can still see the slides. Frozen again. So, notwithstanding, sir, Dr. Rai, I will like to have your views on the hybrid warfare part of it, if you can.
Let me
some light on it. Dr. Rai.
Yeah, thank you. It was really great pleasure, and let me thank first Dr. Arvind Kumar Sharma, and especially the International Organization for Educational Development for organizing such a webinar on hybrid warfare. A lot of explanation has been given by General Anil Malik Sahab, and Brigadier Asthana Sahab also. So I don't think that they need to aid more.
He's General Asthana.
General Asthana. Oh, sorry, sir.
General Asthana, please, yes.
General Asthana. And Brigadier Varghese presentation is also on hybrid warfare. So my presentation will be a little bit different than whatever you have heard till now. Today is 17th of October, and today is the international declared day for eradication of poverty. It was taken the resolution by UN General Assembly, resolution number 47/196. And I think when we talk about hybrid war, we should think about how to fight and eradicate poverty, which is the goal number 1 of the Sustainable Development Goals. Perhaps second thing I will talk that today is the day when Mother Teresa got the Nobel Peace Prize. So we should talk how to have a hybrid for anti-war or promoting peace. We know that conventional war together with multiple and diverse tactics, including diplomacy and terrorism, includes everything in hybrid war. India is known for promoting peace, and we have the expertise on that one, and we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Our expertise should generate hybrid anti-war, and that will be, we should see a dream today, knowing fully what the other countries are using, and the way Asthana Sahab mentioned, that is not a new thing. All hybrid war was used before, also during Bangladesh war, during the Iraq war also by President Bush. Propaganda, and even the Colin Powell went to Security Council to show that Saddam Hussein is a big monster and he has the biological and chemical weapons. He showed the mobile truck also to the Security Council. Tony Blair, other prime minister also joined President Bush, and you know that all the tactics of propaganda, information, technology was used. Today is the time of high technology, and every country you can see that using the technology also to counter any enemy or any person or any country where we have the war. Including, you can see that China. We talk about China, but we also do the same thing. CIA, RA, or other organization was created to support the conventional war by using different tactics. So we know that was a time during time of Mahabharata also. We had number of tactics. Asasthama, Maro, Naroa, Kunjaro, all those tactics were used. So this is not a new thing for us. New thing is that we have new issues where we should use the hybrid technology to tackle those things, like fighting terrorism. Terrorism has become also a weapon, the way it was mentioned, that Armenia and Azerbaijan, both countries are fighting and they are using the tactics of terrorism also and all other means. So we should see that how we can say that we can promote India for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam philosophy and say that we are one family under one God. That I think this is not a hybrid, but this is a old tactics which India has. The way the Prime Minister also mentioned when he was addressing the General Assembly, that when India was powerful, we never terrorized anybody. When we were weak, we never surrendered to anybody. So that is the strength of India. In war in China also, we are using all the way the talks is going on, other techniques, and that is called multi-track diplomacy. That comes everything, including economic war, economic social war, economic propaganda war. All these things comes in multi-track diplomacy. We are also using. We are not bad, but during COVID time, most important thing is that how we can see that when boundaries are not a boundary in real means, boundaries are disappearing and world is becoming a family. We should see that diplomacy can be used, and we can promote. In 1 week after today, the same day on 24th, UN was created, and most of you have already have experience working in UN. Even David Otto also has is a consultant in many UN agencies, and General Asthana has also worked for UN. I think time has come. We should remember the preamble of the Charter of United Nations, which was created and which was started on 24th of October, which is next week, same day. We should see that we the people, means everybody, should join hands, including with the government, and we should see that how we can talk about peace than war. The hybrid peace will be more important than using multi-track diplomacy to go for anti-war. Otherwise, an eye for eye will end making the whole world blind, with Mahatma Gandhi mentioned. And you can see that, okay, the UN was very successful in not to having third world war, which the generation has seen the last century, 2 world wars, but there are many wars going on. And all these tactics are being used the way it was Cold War, the way it was saying that silent many times in interfering the internal matters of the other country and politics and so on and so forth, also including election. So I think we should not compete in that way. India's strength is in uniting people, not dividing. Love, peace, and unity should be the message of hybrid anti-war convention. And we should see that we should become the change in the world rather than following somebody tactics what need to be done. We had also in our ancient India, Vishkanya, we had also the informers were used to inform each other, and we know all sort of tactics. But I think we have always talked about Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, and I will propose today that we should have the tactics. We should not be the weaker in our army, military, and war tactics. At the same time, those tactics should be used to promote peace in the world, and we should say the peace prayer like, if everybody is peace, we can't remain in peace. If somebody is hungry, so today war should be against the global issues and problems which humanity is facing today: hunger, poverty, inequality. All these are the issues where war should start, not with a border. When we war talk, we are always talking about geopolitical war. War is within us. Unless we are peaceful, we can't talk about peace in the world. And unless the whole sky, whole earth, whole air, whole plants and trees, we have to learn how to live in ecology. Our problem is the climate change. That's the war should be against the climate change. Solid waste collection and disposal. And that's why I'm just reminding today, this year World Peace Award went to the World Food Organization, WFP, World Food Program, because they are doing the great service. That is the war we have. Hunger. Nobody should live empty stomach. Nobody should be declined or deprived of good education, quality education. And that is what the Arvind Sharma ji is doing for international educational development. That is his motto, that we should have a quality education starting from India. And now we have the new education policy, which was launched, adopted by the cabinet on 29th of July. We should learn, and that 60-page document should be our Bible, how we can reach to everybody. Still, we have about more than 20% population of India illiterate. That is a war for us. That how to make, in spite of all our effort, we don't have good quality education. Universities are losing quality research, and the whole culture of education is diminishing everywhere. There is no recruitment. Student-teacher ratio should be 130, but there are no teachers from Delhi University to JNU to Patna and Calcutta. And when I go to the university, I feel ashamed that out of 20 staff, only 1 staff is working. How you can think of quality education?
It's a wonderful thing.
All these are the war, and we should think hybrid war practices for all these social and global issues where India has expertise, India has championed Eka Sadvipra Bahudha Bhagati, unite the whole humanity. So thank you so much. And today is the day when Einstein moved from Germany to Princeton University. These are the things to remember today on 17th of October, to see that how we can get motivated and India can become Vishwaguru. Not about, I don't want to talk about Bangladesh border. These are the small trivial things for India, Pakistan and China. It will be resolved. War is against the global issues and problem, which I just mentioned. You can add some more issues where India should take lead and champion it.
So we'll discuss that, sir.
To the global issues. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Doctor. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your very pertinent points, and very nice to hear you from on the peace aspect of the warfare. But then the war has been there for ages together, whether we have been in this era where it's the era of Ram, or whether thereafter, and the era is what we talk of. It's always been there, and despite we try to keep ourselves for the peace, the war is the other side of the coin. So nobody lets you sleep easy, despite you doing that. I don't want to fight, but it's that the borders, they will try to penetrate you. They'll try to make it porous. They'll try to do things which you don't want, and that is where you try to be reactive. That's where you try to keep the peace within the country and the outside the country. So those are the kind of situations what are being emerging, and your point are very relevant. Education policy, your hunger, these are very burning issues of any country, and especially India, where we have such large population. Without that, we really can't progress anyway. Definitely, sir. Dr. Abraham, sir, your video was going again. I'll just put on that slide of the Indian scenario, then we'll go on to the next topic of that. Can you see the slide, sir? Can you see the slide, sir? Dr. Abraham? Your audio is not it. Can't hear you, sir. Can't hear you. Your audio is not there. No, your audio is not there. Can't hear you. Oof. Some problem with the audio of yours, sir. Okay, notwithstanding, sir. Sir, Dr. Arvind Sharma, sir, your points on the hybrid warfare. Would you like to bring about what's the situation like, and when the IOED is doing so much for the education development in India?
Sir, in today's world, plays an important role, and today's cyber world makes it easier to circulate relevant data. It is easy to penetrate into the computer system, which we call it hacking. Knowledge of computer system and coding software is the need of the hour. Most importantly, there is a need to inculcate moral values in our kids, as they are future citizens. Cyber ethics should be taught seriously and with conviction. In the realm of hybrid warfare, technologically advanced nations are in an advantageous position. They can exploit non-attributable means like cyber, information warfare, and surprise deception. There are a few paradigms of hybrid warfare: nullification of political actors, creating discord within a constituency so that it cannot effectively unify around a policy, assistance to anti-government movements, identifying elements in society which are willing to attack rather than participate in the policy-making process, fomenting distrust of a nation's policy-maker process in order to shape its legitimacy. Education makes a certain responsible and patriotic towards his mother earth, and for him, nation security and dignity come first. Therefore, the IOD always focus on educational development, as it creates strong roots which are hard to extract. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. And I think we had a bit of variance in the discussion point, but definitely when we look at from the hybrid warfare, from the global perspective, there is a civil unrest and protest movements which are triggered and fueled and we are seeing it all across the world, which is happening. It's not deniable. You open up any TV channel, international TV channel, you'll really come to know how the global unrest, whether it's Middle East, whether it's Southeast, or Hong Kong, Taiwan, and everywhere, Armenia. So many cases which are started emerging, and there are various attack vectors used now, which the eminent panelists already brought it out. It's being use of new media and traditional technologies which are there, right? There are cyber attacks in the infrastructure, what we are finding, and to give you a perspective that it's really increasing every day. It's not coming down, and that's a reality. It's commonly said that either you will be attacked or you're already being attacked. So there's no survival from that. We have seen economic attacks which are happening, and Estonia, you cannot forget 2007 case where the complete economy had crumbled because of the cyber attack. And attack on the banking system, which is a critical thing which we are seeing it today. It can cripple the complete economy of the world. And unusual effects and partial loss of effectiveness, what we are seeing today, right? And what is it entailing? There's an effect on the population. And to put you very rightly, there's so much of kind of information overload, and most of the information is disinformation, I will say, right? And we are, in other term, untrained in media literacy, right? Most of us. That's where it's a challenge. So what do we require to do is some bit of self-training and education, partly taking place during the protest, right? Because that's how you'll be able to do the media literacy part of it. And when we talk of the other kind of education, the media literacy is pretty important. And to give you a point, the perspective, what really happened when we had the CA coming up and there was a JNU, unrest. There was a lot of disinformation, and the media played a major role in spreading and dispreading the information, and Twitter was one of them, right? So these tools are being used very effectively, where there is no clear leadership of opposition when it is not there. So that's the kind of situation we are in today as regards the hybrid war is concerned. And you most of you are all have been pointing towards these issues which are kind of very critical to us, very much pinpricking to us. And I'd like to know that while we're exploring the vulnerabilities of national security system to the hybrid influence and finding effectiveness, what are the countermeasures which we should take to overcome it, right? So I'd like to ask my eminent panelists on their views on the countermeasures part of it. Yes, please, General Asthana, sir. So we'll begin with you, sir.
Okay. Firstly, as you mentioned, the biggest challenge as of today which the group faces is terrorism. Now, terrorism can be in various forms. It can be cyber terrorism, economic terrorism, information terrorism, digital terrorism. All kinds of terrorism are one part of it. I'll just take 2 minutes to explain as to why the terrorism actually prospers. You have a group of people who are either suppressed or feel that they are suppressed, rightly or wrongly, or you have religious fundamentalism, or you have socio-economic disparity. Now, this group finds a leader. It has an interest group as well, in addition to that joins it. And having joined, then you have some non-state actors who join up. Now, considering all this, then what they do is they fight for their cause through kinetic as well as non-kinetic means. And when I say non-kinetic, obviously the ISIS model also comes into play by recruiting people through the internet network all over the world. If they succeed, like ISI succeeded at some point of time, then they get some kind of caliphate or some area to govern, or certain people are trying, like Taliban is trying to get a legitimacy. If they don't succeed, they continue, use it as a terror industry, and with that industry, they start making money and look for an opportunity to get a legitimacy at some point or the other. Now, to counter that, you have to deny what actually they need: financial support, intelligence, political support, media support, as well as the technological support. If you block all this, then obviously this kind of terrorism as well as cyber terrorism will find it difficult to prosper. We did it to some extent, to some success in Kashmir, and we did find results as well. Now, to deny that, what happens is that there is a times requirement for hard options also of physically eliminating the terrorist, which was done during ISIS time by the multinational forces. Then intelligence also, for that, certainly the vulnerable population has to be befriended in a manner that the population should be happy, and that is where what Professor Rai was mentioning comes into play, that unless you have satisfied population and population which is devoid of certain weaknesses like hunger and things like that, and opportunities, etc., it is difficult to check these people, because these are vulnerable entities which can be targeted by the terrorist groups as well as by the cyber terror groups. In addition, what we need to do is, at the global level, I will talk about the United Nations level. Everybody talks of global war of terrorism in United Nations. Till date, all countries have not arrived at a single common definition of terrorism. The reason is very simple. Every country uses terrorism to its advantage. There is a double speaking involved. There is a terrorist of a country. B country thinks that he is an asset, and he thinks that he is a liberator. And that is how you never arrive at a common definition, and you never reach some kind of solution. United Nations has a very limited capacity to handle terrorism, including cyber terrorism. The capacity is very limited. The capacity is directly proportional to how much strength the member states wants to give it to United Nations. United Nations by itself cannot do much. And that is why you see United Nations nowadays, the credibility is going low. For one of the reasons is that it is becoming politicized. Now, a very clear-cut example which you must have found very recently, that is yesterday or day before, UN HRC elections were held. You find China, despite Uyghur problem, you find Pakistan, despite being the biggest terrorist hub of the world, you find a number of other countries entering that, which are actually supposed to be the biggest human rights violators. Now, why it is happening is because there is a voting pattern, and in that voting pattern, they fit into that requirement. And therefore, as far as the moral is concerned, there is some kind of restructuring which is required. And that is why we say United Nations certainly requires reforms, because if it does not, then there will be no global war on terrorism, and every country will fight the war individually in a manner it suits them best. So that is one part of it. Second is the part of the cyber terrorism. Cyber terrorism, why it flourishes is, it has the advantage of anonymity. It has the advantages of a weaker guy being able to target the strongest country or entity. It has the advantage of digital intrusion. It also is being used. It is the same medium of ICT being used by the terrorists as well as by the people who are functioning under normal circumstances. So, and it has no national boundaries. So considering all that, it becomes a very, very lucrative arrangement. Now, what has United Nations done? There has been a United Nations General Assembly resolution, that is 7327. This was on development in the field of ICT and internal security. Thereafter, the same year, there was one more resolution passed that was for responsibility of state behavior for the use of cyber space. Now, these two resolutions, hardly anything moved after 2018. I am given to understand that a group of governmental experts was formulated. This group was supposed to actually find out a common methodology to be able to do something. But this group is yet to table its report. So this is as far as United Nations is concerned. Now, on ground, what is happening? Every country is trying to build its own capacity. China has got a tremendous amount of capability, and their all cyber warfare is being managed by PLA. Similarly, some other countries, whether like North Korea, like Iran, they also have developed a fair amount of cyber capability. They may have money, they may not have money. That's a separate issue. But cyber capabilities they have been able to develop because it's a cheap medium. So therefore, every country is now trying to do it. We are also trying to do it. When our defense cyber agency was formulated, I was the one who have been talking in all TV channels that we must have an information warfare command, which must have the media guys, which must have the civilians, which must have the cyber experts, which must have the best of the technological minds to be able to defend our financial system, as Inderjeet was trying to mention, that the vulnerabilities exist in all forms of whether it is political system, if the electoral system is manipulated, whether it is in the digital space, whether it is in the propaganda machinery. Also, we also face in the hybrid warfare another factor which has now come in, that is the idea about COVID. Now, COVID again brought into fore the availability, the vulnerability of the countries to CBRN, that is chemical, biological, radiational, and nuclear warfare. Now, this, whether the countries are asking for the, I would say, investigation as to how it started, but I'll leave that part because that's at the global forum. I think that be better left to the specialist. But what is important is that it did start in China, and China having got over it, the second part, that is China made the best use of it in a manner of profiteering out of pandemic. And then when every other country was struggling from pandemic, it started off its multiple engagement and aggression in multiple fronts. Now that is where the hybrid war comes in, that the COVID, a biological catastrophe, was utilized to perhaps propagate a narrative of expansionism. Now, this is something which the countries have to take into account, and that is why the capacity building of the countries is important. There are coordinated offensive strategies which we have to follow, and as I say, the information warfare, our technological enablement to be able to sustain cyber attacks, to have the redundancy to all the systems which we operate, and to also have the confidence building measure between countries as to how we can detect the cyber attacks as fast as possible, find out the source, and thereafter the countries which are propagating it, they must be isolated. We have something called as FATF for terror funding. Why not have a similar organization for cyber isolation, or countries which are branded to be launching cyber attacks? They should be universally isolated. Now, some measures, I think, which we can take it up, and when we send the report, perhaps some kind of such measures we can also suggest and put it into our reports. These are some of the points which I thought I will bring out, and later, in case there is any more discussion.
Thank you, General. Thank you, General Sana sir. And I think very rightly you brought in the skill development, and we getting ready on the skills of the cyber is something very important. Self-reliant in the hardware development is something pretty important for us. While we are talking about the hybrid warfare, the sustenance and the growth part which we have to follow is equally important for us at this point in time. While biological weapon, everybody knows, though we know some people say it hush hush, some media say it very openly, yet, but yes, it was a biological weapon and it was a very targeted weapon. While other people are still struggling, the other countries are still struggling, China is up and running back in the business. So that's where we are seeing how they played the card very well, and they succeeded as of till now. So that's where we stand, sir. And thank you, sir. We would like to have your points when we send the report to the UN as part of the ESOC. Your points would be very relevant to us, sir. Dr. Abraham, sir, you have been getting on and off. I think we will like to have your presentation first, because I don't know, maybe that the network is a problem today with you. So should I go to the slide which you did, or you want to go on to the other presentations?
Can you hear
I
me?
can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you.
That's right. The thing is that before I know that last slide is self-explanatory. You all might have seen the VPI. I want to add one point out here before we switch over. Here, see that we have basically, if you can use this, coin down of economy, research and development. The catchword is using social, print media, and computer and communication network is the system in which the emerging technology will get into it. I know that, Fetal, you come back and deeply go over the cyber attacks, which is basically, it is spearheading the populations with unethical rumors and actions, and in all possible way. And the beauty of this cyber attack or any of this attack is nothing is repetitive in nature. The technology they are utilizing is abundantly in exponential growth. Effectively, they are utilizing this. And the first firewall hybrid war is initiated in the minds of masses. Then it is manifested into the physical world. Therefore, an understanding of the stresses and strain created by religion, society, culture, radicals, and criminals are vital. Intelligence agencies are required to carry out the mapping of human terrain and the social, economic, and the cultural fault lines. Basically, the mapping of the human terrain requires intellectual, social, scientist, cyber expert, and information values, and the professional to understand and unravel any of the uneven behavior by individuals and the groups of people. So finally, people are employing in the 5th generation warfare, which is not come to common man's information. Basically, it is a war of informationalized condition. This is what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I will. We were just talking of the cyber warfare aspect of it, and that is real catching up, and we are challenged by it. And the war in cyberspace is happening right now. And what we have seen is, while last 6 months, the number of attacks on the banks or the power grids or the hospitals, education institutes, nothing has been left. So there are attacks which are happening. They are by non-state actors who are doing at the cost of money. They are at the cost of Bitcoin they want, and the Bitcoin what they kind of asking is not a small amount. They have gone in for $10 million, 15 million euros in Bitcoin. That's the kind of ransomware what they are trying to ask, right? And at the same time, the nation states, they have also started playing their cards, right? And what we are seeing, the nation states were targeting in the month of June, July, August, where they were targeting the development of the vaccine for the COVID itself. They had targeted the manufacturing plant, right, where they were trying to do the vaccine tests and all. So the nation states also have been very active for a couple of months. We are seeing a total dynamics which have changed in last 6 months to a year on the Twitter or the social media, where we are seeing so much of disinformation. Also on the Facebook, both these platforms have been playing havoc as regard the disinformation is concerned, right? And at the same time, when we come on to the people, there's a different kind of monitoring which you're trying to do on the people. Instead of monitoring what they're tweeting, now you're trying to monitor the sentiments of the people who and what they're tweeting now, whether they're tweeting positive, whether they're tweeting negative, what are the sentiments of the people, what they're liking or disliking. So there's a different kind of warfare in the cyberspace itself. And how do we think we are going to be defending these kind of cyber threats, cyber attack, and what's happening in the threat landscape, which have already increased multifold, right? So I will like to have your views on this. So I will start from Mr. David first, then I'll go to General Malik. Mr. David, your views.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I really want to acknowledge the contributions of General Shashi. I think my experience, especially when I talk to multi-stakeholders or a global platform of this nature, each country needs to have the ability to be able to identify and categorize their various threats, within the hybrid warfare space. And I think this is very important because each country has a different threat matrix. So one of the things that we always encourage each country to do is to be able to develop the human capacity, to develop the structural and resource capacity to be able to identify what are the key cyber hybrid threats that they have, and categorize those various threats, in the level of importance. So what are A threats? What are B threats? What are C threats? What are the low-level threats that you have from the hybrid perspective, from the conventional war perspective, from the asymmetric war perspective, from the proxy war perspective? And the only way that you can do that is also, you must also have the ability to develop an intelligence-led approach. And the only way you can also develop an intelligence-led approach is if you have a very robust civil security and military structure, which means you need to have the backing of the people. Because what one has realized in recent times, in the 21st century, is that being very robust within your own space, within your internal space, is not enough to be able to deal with some of these threats. You've got to be able to have your reach outside your national boundaries. So building your resilience within your state and outside of your state is a very key element in terms of one of the key approaches that I believe is very helpful. And that is why I categorize it in three levels, especially when it comes to interventions. The first level is the ability to create awareness of your various kinds of warfare that you face within your country, because this has to be led by the local population. There is no longer the traditional warfare tactics of involving only the military or the security agencies. Your population, your local population, must be at the forefront of any security engagement that you carry out. And then, of course, you have to build your resilience within each and every identified area. And this is where I come to the last point, which is capacity building and capacity building. You've got to always do that. You've got to review it. You've got to make sure that your threat analysis and your vulnerability analysis are always updated within your state to understand where your threats vary and where they increase in various areas. So that is the kind of framework that I think would be very useful for countries that are interested in building a resilience against hybrid warfare. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. David. Really insightful, and I could say more what you have brought in, the points which are very important from an international perspective and how the global scenario is all about. I'll request General Malik to give his viewpoint, please.
A couple of years back, maybe just about a decade, the euphoria and excitement everybody had was that today we are a globalized world. I can reach out where I want. I can get whatever I want. I can talk to my cousin on Zoom or on Skype platform. All this globalization has suddenly now turned into a vulnerability. The cyber warfare, the cyber operations that are taking place are a lot of it result of this globalization that came about. The ability to reach out from anywhere to anywhere. Any system today is open to being attacked. Systems are in place where you are not able to differentiate as to where the attack is emanating from. Is it an individual? Is it an organization? Is it a state? Or is it a non-state actor? By the time you realize that a damage is being done, or if the process has started where your systems have been attacked, it's either too late or a lot of damage has already taken place. So therefore, in my perception, the first need is, firstly, we'll talk about at the national level, is to have a coordinated agency which be responsible for taking care of these, whether it's a hybrid warfare threat or a part of the hybrid warfare is the cyber threat. There has to be one agency which should be able to monitor and control the response. If the threats are being synchronized at every level, then the response also has to be synchronized. You can't have that X state is going to act on its own, Y state is going to function on its own. So it has to be a coordinated effort. Number two, the realization that there is a threat existing, unfortunately, does not exist to the extent which it should. The realization has to come into the corporate world, it has to come into society, it has to come right down to the grassroots level of every human being, has to understand that there is a threat exists. We have this famous gadget called a mobile phone, one of the most vulnerable pieces of equipment that you can come about. I remember in my unit, I passed an order that nobody is permitted to bring a mobile phone inside the unit lines. They will be deposited at the gate. And we made sure that we created a facility, a telephone facility where you could be contacted or approached. There was a hue and cry. I was questioned a number of times. Of course, today we have well-structured policies on such things. But this is an era where I'm talking about because there was somebody who take a photograph of an equipment, and the next thing you know, it's either with the media, and God forbid us, we all are aware of a very responsible media that exists both internally and across the globe. So unless this education of the vulnerabilities goes down to every man, I'm afraid we will not be able to put up a sustained and a synchronized fight against such elements. Today, opposition anywhere and everywhere in the world, whether it is today or in the past, have their own irresponsible moments because they have their own priorities. Now, these are people who are being manipulated. And that manipulation is carried out in a manner that anything that is to be done is always opposed. So we have to be very cautious of this thing. It is a delight to hear the Prime Minister bringing out that a new cyber security policy is coming into place, which is going to take care of a lot of our issues which we face today. But that cyber security policy will only be effective when the education to every man is provided. Coming out at the international level, this is a fight which has to be collective. Like Mr. David brought out, there cannot be single nations carrying out individual efforts to contain, whether it is terrorism, whether it is hybrid warfare, whether it is cyber attacks. A coordinated effort has to come about. General Astara highlighted the issues about the United Nations. But then there has to be an agency which has to take control. And unfortunately, unlike our nuclear efforts, there can't be people who are the privileged few. There cannot be somebody who's going to decide that I am a responsible nation and you are not. Unfortunately, this business of somebody deciding that who is the responsible, and to say that I can hold nuclear weapons because I am responsible and you can't hold nuclear weapons because you are irresponsible. This is a very fine line to divide that. So also whenever we look at coordinating efforts, they can't be the privileged few. We have to identify the threats. I remember, I think the Chinese president and President Obama came to an understanding as to the limit and the precautions to be taken about the Chinese espionage which was happening. There was a definite movement and there was a definite reaction that took place, and for good 2 to 3 years this espionage was taking place at a very low level. But today, as the trade war has developed, as the reach has developed, we are back to eras where every man has become vulnerable, and those critical vulnerabilities have to be taken care of. And the last point I'd like to make is that while individual systems can be controlled, we can bring in antivirus, we can build firewalls, we can do all that. But it's the overall network which is the most vulnerable. There has to be a methodology wherein efforts are made to curtail activity and monitor activity on these networks. The hardware is the most vulnerable, and any security system that have to be built in have to start at the hardware right from the designing stage. So that is as far as individual systems are concerned, but overall a coordinated and synchronized effort both at the national level and international level is the only answer to taking care of such threats. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And again, that skill development remains the most important point, because while we talk about the hardware development, the development of ICs, writing of the microprocessor, the chip codes is very important, because we know anybody who wants to win the war today, he will manipulate the chips. And if we depend more on China and do not develop ourselves, we'll always be crippled when it comes to testing time of the warfare. And that's important, where we have to focus, being a software warfare, the software country. We have to get into the hardware development country as well. That's the focus which we have to do, and there's a lot of impetus which has been given by the Narendra Modi government for developing and getting into the hardware development part of it. I'll request Dr. Rai, please, to give your views on how do we really work in the cyberspace with the current scenario.
I fully agree whatever has been said till now by the earlier panelists. I think it's a very serious concern. I fully agree with General Asthanaji that UN is not able to cope with the demands and requests and the issues and problem of global nature. You know that the politics behind. When UN fails, this credit goes to UN. When UN succeeds, some country takes the credit. We are the one responsible for weakening the United Nations, because you know that managing one country and one parliament, how much difficult it is. UN is managing 193 countries, and that is why whole problem is that we are not able to come out. And I fully agree with him that terrorism is a serious problem, including the cyber threat used by the terrorists. I agree with him that terrorism was not defined up to 2005 when President Bush was on the World Summit took place in New York. I was also part of that, and terrorism was loosely defined that time in UN. But many countries don't agree with that one, because country has to agree, and definitely there is no binding on that one, like the census and other thing. So I think sometime the war situation, all this fear are created by our governments, including I'm saying the Indian government, to divert the attention also from the local issues to the war front. And sometimes it is helpful also to the government. I will give one example. India could not have terminated all the contract, including the signal for railway and 5G and sources of why, because of our contract and signatory of WTO. But during the war situation, you can do that one. So India is in favor to keep the situation for a little bit longer so that India can terminate most of the contract of China. That is also one aspect. Second thing is we should see that we should not keep aloof from what is happening in the world and what are the threats we have, including the cyber. And we should train ourselves, we should educate ourselves on the way Mr. Arvind Sharma mentioned. Through education, we should educate our youth, empower them so that they can address, they can face the challenges in the world. And last but not least, these are sometimes election propaganda also in many of the countries. I'm not saying India is doing the same thing, but many times, many countries use like election propaganda from America to other countries also. So we should be always careful. Our strength is the soft power. And in cyber is also one of the soft power thing. We talk about love, peace, and unity, but at the same time, we should educate and train our youth so that we can see that our youth are facing and can face the challenges of 21st century very well. Are all 4-5 challenges which we have in the world. And I think hybrid war, again, I will say the hybrid war should not be talked about only the border war and geopolitical war. Hybrid war should be for the global issues and problem. Thank you so much.
That's right. That's right, Dr. Raisen. It's really, thank you very much for your remarks. I'll request Dr. Abraham to, give your view, sir.
Before I get into my presentation, I wonder, add one more point to what General Malik has said. Actually, not only mobile, the present app is the grassroots level of WhatsApp app, is the grassroots level awareness which is required to be sent to every individual. Because when you are sharing or downloading an app, automatically it is asking your file, contacts, as well as your location. We normally say, yes, we are damaging our full systems in terms of the data getting leaked out. Even if you see the difficult every day morning, every person utilizes around 100 greetings, different flowers and everything. They also understand that underneath and beneath that particular software do have a link to one which takes out your data and send it to the originator. Knowing this, it's more dangerous than the present pandemic. That is what is actually this. When you come back to the actually protection against cyber threat, is the few slides I projected. Basically, if you see that history, next slide, sir. If you see, this is totally covered how much, who set it. The Chinese attack, cyber warfare, hackers with Chinese. This India Today has covered out here, and all the news medias have covered it in abundantly to give awareness to all the people. How many people react to it and make it take looks this one seriously is the biggest test. If you see that what is basically the cyber warfare which we are talking about, everybody has to be a politically motivated destructive attacks aimed at sabotage and espionage. What is in that? Whereas the Indian media exposed how a private Chinese data mining company, which Varada was mentioning that, over 10,000 Indian individuals have been tracked in the big data. That is basically what is these things people are doing with it. And there is no question of studying the earlier case studies of cyber attacks because nothing is repetitive in nature. Only when I talk about this, whereas the model in which we have supposed to have it, it is what is basically it is called kill chain model, in which it is existence. First of all, it finds out which is the weak links and recce it out, and intrusion out it, exploit it, and then subsequently it will have a privileged escalations, and where after getting into it, they will have a lateral movement to create space, and from there it moves that the forensic systems of utilizations. Then it comes to the denial of any of the services which was extended to it. It will deny it, and extraction of all the data and the details will be taken. This is basically, it is basically in a chain model. It kills your organization. That is basically the case study. I was mentioning that it has got no worthwhile utility of knowing how a case when attack has been done at different stages, because presently the cyber warfare is also growth is exponential. It's not actually, it is not exponential, it is explosive. That is what is basically it is looked at. And including if you see the Zoom, people are not utilizing for the defense installations or anywhere the security is there, even though the originator is from America. But the cyber movements of encryption technology is through a lab of China, in which the right is there with them to know who is doing what is the data, what is the data collection is being done in China in a big way through Zoom. So these type of things we are unaware of it, including if we take a small example of it, we are using some UAVs, unaided vehicles, unarmed vehicles, to get the stealth data from anywhere, wherever it is impossible to achieve. However, there is a leakage frequency system in most of the manufacturers give it. Whatever the data captured by UAVs have been sent to the manufacturers. These type of things we have to cater for it and counter for it, and we should protect our weak links rather than we do have many methods of protecting ourselves in different way. This is the thing which I would like to say, that how what basically it is water holing, spear phishing, and enticing the target into small malicious documents and getting onto it is basically the intruder's job of getting it in any of the means and methods. Thank you very much. This is my point.
Thank you, Brigadier Abraham. It was really wonderful. And, we are towards the end of our webinar, and, there are a couple of questions which are there. I'll just ask them. Just one sec. There was one question by Mr. Murli. He said, we should address the root cause of these rebel groups because they are depressed and deprived of their basic rights as a human due to political vested reasons, even misunderstandings of good intentioned governments. These small groups grow and become terrorist groups. We have to address this right at the local society level, say right at the street level. Soon we will live in peace and no war, with no wars. I think very rightly he has brought it out, Mr. Mulli. Anyone to comment on this particular aspect of it?
So I have addressed in mind the things. Basically, first firewall of hybrid is to the minds of masses, and subsequently I address this one is because of the stress and strain created by all, whether it is religion, society, culture, radicals, and criminals. And this is basically which we are looking, should be able to address it at the local government level. Generally, we'll be able to get it. It's a duty of each citizen to be the citizens of the nation. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say something on this. There is absolutely no doubt in what has been brought out that This is something we learned while we were in school, that for any insurgency or anything to be successful, local support is the most important thing. And the area where local support gets activated is when people feel deprived. Like General Astana a little while back brought out that if the people are deprived, they are bound to resist it, and the people themselves become vulnerable to influences from outside, by people from outside getting motivated. You can't get away by every time by saying, look what happened in the Northeast, or what happened in Ireland, or what happened in Kashmir, because X country is motivating them. That is not your business. Your business is to make sure that your own people aspirations are met. If their aspirations are not met, well, then every country is going to exploit them, and we can't make these excuses and get away. So what Mr. Murli has brought out is absolutely valid. We have to ensure that the grassroots level people are taken care of, their aspirations are met, and what Dr. Rai also mentioned, until that is going to happen, we are going to keep facing these problems.
Thank you very much, and it was really very insightful discussions, and some of the takeaways while all the panelists were really talking about it. The takeaways are that hybrid warfare breaks down the distinction between what part of the battlefield by using all available means, that's the political, military, economic, social, infrastructure, and information spectrum, right? And there's an innovation always comes with the associated risks. That's what we are being trying to bring out this point, and the opportunity may be well worth the risk. That's is very important to think, a point to ponder. And integration of technology into training, professional education, being a soft power, hardware power, and the training is really very important. And last but not the least, hybrid warfare is not a strategy per se, but merely means an operation, which is and the approach which we are going to take in times to come. So that is how the hybrid warfare is going to really move ahead with us. That's how we are trying to approach. And these are the kind of discussions what we generated. A lot of very insightful discussions which came in, and I thank each one of you to be here with us and give your viewpoints, which were very pertinent, very insightful, and a valuable time. I thank all of you, starting from no sequence, starting from Brigadier Abraham to David Otto, to Dr. Rai, to General Astana, General Malik, and of course the pillar of IOED, Dr. Arvind Sharma. So thank you very much, and thanks all the attendees to have attended this particular webinar with us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye and Jai Hind.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
And Colonel Singh, thank you very much for anchoring and doing the MC work. Great. I really thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, sir. It was really wonderful to meet you all here. On any meeting, we'll definitely meet again when the things open up. We'll love to meet you.
Yes, thank you all the panelists also. It was a great pleasure to meet with you and to listen to your views. Really, I learned a lot from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Dr.
everyone.
Abhi.
Bye-bye,
Thank you,
sir.
Colonel
Jain,
Singh.
sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Mr. Otto. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind Sharma, for organizing the event. I mean, it's a very insightful event. Thank you, Colonel Indrajit, for so meticulously moderated so that everything could come out. And thank you to everyone. Great having met up with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jen.
It's 5 o'clock.